if you've just come from the Goonerverse match report, yes, I'm in the exact same spot, recording it straight after. There were some updates, and this is exactly why I made this second channel, people, so that we could cover all the news, but it's all got its place. Right, so David Ornstein has come in with updates on Thomas Partey, Dean Huijsen, Martin Zubimendi, and our hunt for a winger. Let's break it all down. So David Ornstein was talking live. Oh, I want to say it was an NBC, but I might got that wrong. I'll put in the description exactly where he said all this stuff, and I will retweet the post so that if you go on my X account, you can see exactly the updates. But here's what I to say. So we dropped a video about 8-9 hours ago about Thomas Partey and the Charles Watts update. And do you know what? I need to say this, okay? Sometimes I can just get an idea for whether there's something in a story. And look, obviously it comes from reliable journalists, and that helps, right? But I remember when this Oyan Sunset stuff came out, I thought, oh, there's not really much to cover here, but we'll do a breakdown on him because I think he's really well suited to us. We did that on the Goonerverse main channel, but I didn't cover him on the Goonerverse too. I didn't really think there was enough weight to it. But this Partey one, is there enough weight? It's kind of... Charles Watts was basically telling us, if you watched the last video, that, you know, there's a feeling that the situation with Partey's contract might have changed, that Arsenal might actually be willing to offer him a new deal. And I went, I think there's something to this, man. No smoke without fire. I think there's a fire burning somewhere. In comes David Ornstein, who tweets what's pretty much an exclusive saying, and Sammy Mockbell came with something similar to Charles Watts, but he basically said, Arsenal want Partey to sign a new deal. And I think they're kind of negotiating over whether it's a 2-year deal or a one with an extension. And Partey will explore his options, but Arsenal want him to stay. If you want me to talk about Partey in major detail, guys, I have done all that in the Goonerverse too. I'd only be repeating myself in terms of the midfield options, who we'd have for next season. What does it mean for Zubimendi? What does it mean for the blended midfielders? Do we still need another 10? Does it save us money for other positions? So if you want my thoughts on all that, it is there on the Goonerverse too. Still very relevant. The Ornstein news doesn't change everything I said on that. So I really do encourage you to go watch that video too. But Ornstein came in with some other stuff. Martin Zubimendi. He said this many times. In fact, he keeps saying it. And we're also hearing that Real Madrid are... Because this was something that had been mentioned was, does the Zubimendi deal get affected by Xabi Alonso going to Real Madrid? And I'm not even sure I'm meant to be saying this, but I'm going to give the credit where it's due. Hand of Arsenal, who's on top with everything. You know, put it in my mind, you know, does that have an impact? And I think, I kind of kept wondering, like, you know, if he goes there, Zubimendi, who I think might be mentored by Xabi Alonso or something like that, is that the place he'd want to go? Now, to be fair, they've got Camavinga and Tchouaméni. So you've got kind of two players but Camavinga can be box-to-box or whatever, so you kind of got players there. But David Ornstein's come out with something that... Sorry, I'm all over the place a little bit with this Zubimendi section. So let me just say this again better. The Real Madrid thing worried me. Now it looks like they're going to get Xabi Alonso. Hand of Arsenal has suggested that I should maybe think about that. Arteta, though, has wanted Zubimendi for a while, and David Ornstein keeps reporting, saying Arsenal are working internally on the basis that Zubimendi is joining. And it was Sammy Mockbell who broke the news in January saying that Zubimendi is set to sign. It's been very strong from English media. Whatever the Spanish press is saying, whatever happens with Xabi Alonso, it's been very strong. And Ornstein keeps reiterating that, and he did again today. So Partey being offered a new deal and Arsenal wanting him to stay is not really affecting the Zubimendi thing. Arsenal want Zubimendi. They want to spend the £51 million or maybe more in order to get more favourable kind of terms of the payment structure. That has been kind of floated around, I think. And Arsenal can next season have Zubimendi and Partey, Rice and Maroon as the left eight, and then Ødegaard, Waneri. I think you're looking at maybe a Vieira if he stays another year, but I think we need someone in that position too. Sorry, I keep hiccuping. So, that's interesting. I did wonder whether we were losing a grasp on the Zubimendi deal and Real Madrid had come in strong because now we were kind of willing to keep Thomas Partey. And when you look at it, Rice, Partey, Zubimendi, those 3 sixes start for most clubs in world football. Maybe not over Rodri, and there's maybe 1 or 2 others you could talk about, but largely that is the most incredible collection of number 6 options. I think Zubimendi could play as an 8. I think you could play games with Ødegaard, Partey and Zubimendi. I think that shouldn't be overlooked. But Arsenal's still very much working internally on the basis that they're bringing him in. And this Partey news brought by David Ornstein too isn't really having an impact on the Zubimendi deal. That's how it reads at the moment. Now, on Dean Huijsen, he just confirmed that we're still in the race, but Florian Plettenberg has really kind of put Liverpool at the forefront. He mentioned us, that's a Sky journalist. He said that Arsenal were definitely in for this player too, but Liverpool kind of really in there. I think Real Madrid are quite big on Dean Huijsen too, so we'll keep an eye on that. But the other big update that came from David Ornstein, he was saying that if Arsenal want to sign a winger, they're going to have to sell. They're going to have to sell one, and the two are Martinelli and Trossard. So let's talk about each one. Martinelli is the profile of winger I think our system suits. More pacey, more direct, incredible work rate, can stretch a back four, can be lethal on the counter-attack. But Trossard is the one who actually makes the most out of the little kind of natural creativity and kind of relentless chance creation we have, because I think Trossard does more with little. I think Trossard, with far less service, far less help, with far less attacking patterns, attacking rhythm and domination from those around him in terms of an Arsenal performance, I think could do way, way more. Martinelli, though, like I said, when Arsenal at the peak of their powers, like we were in the 2 games against Real Madrid, I think he's so threatening. I don't think Trossard can do what Martinelli did in both games against Real Madrid. So it's a really tough one. What would you do? I think a lot of this depends on fees. I think if 35 million comes in for Trossard, I think you do that deal. But I think if 70, 80 million comes in for Martinelli, okay, you're probably all laughing me, but, you know, maybe 60. I think if it's 50, I wouldn't do it, because I think we still need depth. And, you know, he is bloody fast. So I think it's got to be 60 plus for me to feel like, yeah, cool, because I still think we need depth. And one of the ways you build depth is not just by adding depth players, but adding players that are better than what you got, and then they get demoted to depth, right? So I still think it has to be 60, 65 million for Martinelli to go and 35 million for Trossard. To be honest, even if it's 25 million, you get your money back for Trossard, I'd do it. Yeah, difficult one. Who would it be for you? Who would you rather keep going into next season? You also got to think Trossard can play up front a little bit more naturally than Martinelli. He's probably a little bit happier on the bench. He's also a different profile. Maybe you could say Williams and Martinelli a little bit more like for like. I don't think any of them are that similar, but you could argue that actually Trossard is a different type of player, can play more in central spaces too. All this to think about. So to sum up, Charles Watts came in earlier with the update that the situation might have changed with Partey. Ornstein has told us that Arsenal want him to stay and sign a new contract. It doesn't. He's also told us it doesn't affect the Zubimendi deal. We're in for Dean Huijsen, and it's going to have to be a winger out for a winger in. Interestingly, I don't think he said anything about the striker. I might have missed that bit. But we don't have to sell anyone, for example, to get a striker. And I think the striker search is independently its own thing. All right, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Those are all the updates. Time for bed. In a bit.